compromises, and then having concluded that the Iranians are not going to cease enriching uranium, to proceed with leveling sanctions on Iran to induce that outcome.
I guess the question is the government of Israel and the Obama administration on the same page as far as Iran is concerned?
We agree with a great number of things with the Obama administration.
What don't you agree with?
We'll talk about what we agree on first. What we agree on, that the goal is the end and complete cessation of uranium enrichment on Iranian soil. We agree that if the Iranians do not accept a compromise package, that then the United States will join with the international community, with like-minded states, in developing, devising, and imposing these crippling sanctions on the Iranian economy. We are very much on the same page on all of those issues.
Where aren't you on the same page?
I don't think there are any major differences between us on this. I think we're now re-examining how we're going to proceed to imposing these sanctions, and we are closely communicating with and cooperating with the Obama administration.
Because in recent years there have been differences as far as the intelligence assessment of the U.S. government and the Israeli government as to how close Iran is to actually possessing a nuclear bomb.
I think we're very closely communicating and cooperating on all of these issues. And our assessments are very, very similar.
Is your intelligence the same as the U.S. assessment?
Our assessments are very similar.
There's another story in the New York Times today, you probably saw it on the front page, about these secret tunnels. Now take a look behind you. You see that picture there? There, Ahmadinejad wearing the hard hat in the front there. He visited a tunnel. This is not necessarily a tunnel where they're having some nuclear facilities, but it would be deep underground. Does Israel have the capability to destroy Iranian nuclear facilities in these deep underground tunnels?
Well, we're nowhere near that point now. We are focused now on sanctions, not on destroying tunnels. We're focused on getting these sanctions up and running and to assessing their impact.
And you really believe these sanctions could change the government of Iran?
We believe that the sanctions can be effective. We are interested in seeing the degree to which the other important factors and actors in the international community will cooperate. I think there's a growing awareness on the part of all international actors, the Russians, the Chinese, that Iran poses a threat not just to Israel and the Middle East, but poses a threat to world peace. There are greater indications that the Russians are willing to come aboard. The working assumption is if the Russians come aboard, the Chinese will not want to remain ashore, and we're hopeful that the sanctions can prove effective.
We're also seeing these demonstrations in Tehran, elsewhere in Iran, a lot of people out on the street protesting the regime of President Ahmadinejad. Do you believe that there can be a revolution of sorts inside of Iran, regime change, if you will, by the people on the streets?
Well, I don't get into prophecy about the future of Iran, Wolf. What's clear now is in the aftermath of the upheaval that began last June, it's not the same Iran. This is not a monolithic, unchallenged leadership. There are great schisms within Iranian leadership and between the leadership and the people. What we do believe, for example, is that sanctions will not galvanize the regime and its people, will actually widen the gaps between them. To put it very graphically, if you have a cab driver in Tehran who runs out of gas because of sanctions, if before in June he would have gotten out of his cab and blamed Israel, the West, for running out of gas, today that same cab driver in Tehran gets out of his gasless cab and blames his own government for bringing these sanctions down on him.
So I guess the other part of that question is, if there is a revolution, Mousavi and his supporters were to take over, would that make a difference as far as Iran's nuclear program, as far as Iran and Israel is concerned?
I'm sure that Iran under a different government would have a different relationship with Israel. For many years, Iran had a close relationship with Israel, and for certainly at least the first 2 decades of Israel's existence, Iran was Israel's major oil supplier.
All right, let's talk about airline security. As you know, since Christmas Day, there's been a huge amount of concern here as far as security at U.S. airports, for good reason. Israel is well known for having very tight security at Ben Gurion Airport, El Al, among the most secure airlines in the world. What is the single most important piece of advice you would give the U.S. as far as airline security is concerned?
I don't think Israel is in the position of giving advice to people. I think we learn from one another, and we are closely investigating the circumstances surrounding the attempted destruction of this plane bound for Detroit on Christmas. But Israel does present a different model for airport and airline security. Israel is less concerned with what people are wearing or the way they're dressed or what they're carrying. Rather, we're more concerned with the way they behave. And it's not, it's been widely misrepresented that that we racially profile. We don't. I go through that airport every other week, and very often it happens that someone, an Arab Israeli in flowing robes or a woman in a complete hijab, goes through as easily as I do. But I should know that I, as the ambassador of Israel to the United States, I get stopped every single time. And I get checked by people, many of them young enough to be my own kid, who are asking me questions, and they're looking for inconsistency in my answers. They're looking not what I'm wearing, they're not looking at my ethnicity, they're looking at how I behave and how I react to certain kind of questions. That's a different model, and certainly we're willing to share that model with the United States and other countries in the world facing this common problem of airborne terror.
The Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren. With links to the airline bombing plot, is Yemen the next front in the war against terror? I'll ask two members of Congress who are deeply involved in intelligence, Republican Pete Hoekstra and Democrat Jane Harman. And should Democrats be nervous about 2010? I'll speak with Democratic strategist James Carville and Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Steele.